Hello everyone, and welcome to the Edain Mod. And today we're not doing a battle, as you can guess from the title. I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about playing the Edain Mod for Battlefield Middle Earth 2. Nothing into too much detail, mainly just going over the key points of what the Edain Mod offers and how you can change up how the game actually plays compared to how other mods play. So, firstly, we're starting off in the skirmish screen, since obviously that's the place where most people will go to when playing, either that or the network screen, but technically they're both the same. And firstly, you've got all the maps, which are always going to be the same, with compared to Battlefield Middle Earth 1, 2, Rise of the Witch King. Most of them are the same. Some are unique to the Edain Mod, and some of them I might go over in another video. But the main things I want to go over, firstly, we'll go with the game settings. So, initial resources, that's always going to be the same, 500 to 4,000. They recommend 1,000 to start with. I recommend 2,000. But I'm going to pick 4,000 for this representation just so I can get things running along faster. And this is something new, game mode. So, before, what used to be here was only a command point adjuster. So basically you can increase or decrease the amount of command points in a game from 1% to like 5% or 0.5%. Or whatever the number was, probably times. But in this game mode, in Edain, you have a choice of the ordinary skirmish, which is what I've been playing for those who have been watching my content. There's elite and massacre, which reduce the normal command points to either half or a third, but give other advantages, stronger troops, for example. So think of it like having special elite units. Instead of having like orc spam, you'd want to probably go for black orcs instead, because they'd be really strong. And then they've also got introduced victory points and conquests, which again are very similar. One, you have to hold half of all the settlements. The other one, you have to hold half of everything. Sorry, no, not everything. Hold half of certain areas on the map. That does normally depend on exactly where they are. Then there's legendary heroes. For those of you that remember some like hero defenses from way back when in the day, legendary heroes is basically making it so heroes are super strong and you'll always want to get them because they can fight off armies on their own as if they couldn't already. And an epic battle, 10 times as many command points, as if you wanted to just break the game, if you could. So yeah, obviously, as I've said, I normally play skirmish. Victory point and conquest are more of a way of speeding up to the end game. Instead of trying to rush down an enemy base, you just hold most of the map and you win. Legendary heroes and elite and massacre are more focused on more micromanaged plays, using certain single entities being stronger than a large blob, which works in some ways, works in others. But I'm not going to go into too much detail unless you want me to in the future video. So next, obviously, custom heroes. They are different in the Edain Mod than they are to Battlefield Middle Earth, but I'm not going to go into too much detail over them. I'm just going to say they are different. They are, I'm not going to say improved, they are just different. They've got new functionality, and honestly, the best of all the heroes are actually now the Soldiers of Gondor, the Shield Maidens, or the elf warriors that you can get, that the Edain Mod introduced with Imladris. And ring heroes, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about ring heroes. Just know that with the ring hero, when you find the ring by killing Gollum, the ring will go onto a timer, and only the ring hero is allowed to pick up the ring. Before, you're allowed to pick up the ring with anyone, and then take it back to your base, and then eventually give it to the ring hero. They become the ring hero, and then all that stuff happens. But now you actually have to have the ring hero on the field and picking up the ring to actually get the ring hero, which I think is better functionality-wise, because it helps people not want a turtle to just get a super powerful hero from dumb luck. This time, now you have to actually have that hero on the field, then get super lucky and get the ring, and then you can get a really powerful ring hero. And then obviously if the ring hero dies, then they drop the ring, and again that ring timer will then go again. I think it's a minute long if my memory serves me right. And then after that's gone, Gollum will come back, pick up the ring, and then you have to do the whole hunting process again. Some factions have it easier, some factions don't. It depends on if you have actual ways of showing stealth troops. Anyway, enough about all this. Now we go on to the maps. So I'm going to go quickly onto the Forge of Eisen 2, just so I can show off pretty much everything. So firstly, starting points. This is something you won't know about in BFMU 2 or Rise of the Witch King, but in the Edain mod you play in the BFMU 1 format. So you have camps, castles, and outposts, and you have to take settlement points to build up your economy or make special military buildings, or just special buildings in general. For some factions like the dwarves with the pony camps, or just special resource buildings like with Isengard's lumber mills and the dwarven lumber mills that only they can build on the outpost, not in their camps or castles. So it makes it so the camp and castle is your main hub of economical and military power. Then your settlements are your sub areas where you then build up your power base from there. And then outposts are kind of the branch in between. Outposts can actually be more important than your main base in recruitment or economy, depending on the faction. In my opinion, normally this happens with Rohan, with the exile camp, and sometimes the dwarves, because they get the lines of defenses, so they can get extra build plots. But I'll go over that in each individual faction's beginner guide. Today we're just talking about everything as a whole. And then obviously there are lairs. Lairs are a thing that's been since BFMU 1. There's always been goblins, wargs, and trolls. Now there's a larger a larger spectrum of lairs, and I've grouped them into 3 different categories: low tier, medium tier, and high tier. And low tier are goblins, orcs, and men of Dunland. Medium tier are wargs and spiders, and I believe there are some wolves on certain maps, specifically Arnor maps, but we'll go into that in more detail, maybe in another video, maybe not. And obviously high tier are the trolls, the drakes, and the barrow-wights, that when they get destroyed offer a lot of money, but also they have very powerful creeps protecting them. But anyway, before we go any further, I'm going to go into the Forge of Eisen as Gondor, and I'll show you now what the game looks like on the actual map that we play on. And I think the Forge of Eisen is perfect for that because it has pretty much everything you need. So, specifically Gondor, I'm not going to go over anything that Gondor really does, just going over what every faction has in general. So, as I said, every faction has a castle or a camp, and camps always have 6 build plots. Castles are different, and some people are controversial about that because some factions like Gondor have 9 build plots, while other factions like Rohan only have 7, Enlarged only have 7. Obviously Mordor and Isengard don't have walls. Some people don't like they don't have walls. Obviously it's meant to create balance. But as I said, on the map there are different build plots you can get. So there's outposts, there's settlements, and then there's also the main build plots where every character starts with, castles or camps. Camps are slightly smaller than castles. You can actually build up a castle from those from this land. If you move over to it, the banners become your colour, and then you can build it into a castle for the recommended for the full cost. For a castle, it's 5,000. For a camp, it's 2,000. For an outpost, the base outpost is 800, and the special outpost depends on what their special outpost is. So here you can see we have the Wildmen of Dunland, and they're protecting their creep. Every time we kill a Wildman of Dunland, they eventually go on a little respawn timer. For the lower tiers, they come back much quicker than on the higher tiers. Obviously, killing off a troll is going to take about 30 seconds before it rematerializes from the lair. For Wildmen, every time you kill a Wildman, they each individually go onto a spawn timer. Honestly, with like the spiders, I kind of go back and forth saying they're medium tier or low tier. In BFME 2 and Rise of the Witch King Vanilla, they are definitely medium tier. But it's kind of back and forth if they're low tier or not in the Edain mod. I think currently they are medium tier. They are slightly stronger than one with Dunland or Goblins, but they're not quite as strong as, say, the Wargs. But however, they don't have the same weakness as the Wargs as with Pikemen. So, next. In the build plots, you can build different buildings. Firstly, you have your economy buildings. Every faction has 2 different economy buildings. Most of them have 2 different ways of discounting. For the townhouse, for Gondor, they generate taxes and lower the cost of expanded storerooms, elite and heroic units. So those are your best troops, and that's your way of getting more command points. We'll go over that shortly. Then there's the blacksmith, which reduces the cost of upgrades. Most factions have a way of reducing the cost of their upgrades. I think the only faction that doesn't is Rohan. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. Then we have military buildings. For Gondor, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different military buildings. You have your melee infantry. You have ranged infantry. Ranged infantry. Some factions have these buildings merged together. Gondor have them separate because they have the build plots. They can do that, and it's always been a thing in the game. Then there's also cavalry. Again, not every faction actually has cavalry from their main base. Main focuses on that. It would be Lothlorien and Mordor, but again, not going to go over that too much. And then we have siege. Every faction has some kind of siege. That has been a thing in Edain forever. It's been a thing in BFME 2 forever. Although some factions have it in different ways. So next we come to the settlements. Now you can see the settlements. The economy buildings on the settlements are very different to the economy buildings in the base. So if you look at this, the townhouse and the blacksmith, as I said before, these generate resources but also decrease the cost of some things. And then this decreases the cost of upgrades. Then we have farms, which reduces the cost of cavalry. And then we have ranger tents, which reduces the cost of the composite bow upgrade. And then there's also another special building. Every faction has this kind of special building, like I said. Some of it's for recruitment, some of it's for just having access to new things. Some of it is specifically just to have as a thing to fill in the roster. And in this case, we're going to build a signal fire. And then we're going to move on to this one. Let that do that while I continue rambling. So, also, every building has up to 3 levels. Level 1 is obviously the first. Level 2 is the medium level, which is normally the easiest to get to after the first level, obviously. And then the 3rd level is more difficult to get to. It normally costs a bit more, depending on who it, what's it for, and how what exactly you get it for. Every faction has different ways of improving your building up levels. For Gondor, you have to pay the cost immediately, and then you get the building upgrade, nice and easy. However, resource buildings, they are now different because they don't get like the way that the BFME 1 tutorial called it was veterancy. Basically, the building used to gain experience over time. If you're used to playing BFME 2, Rise of the Witch King, or even the Age of the Ring mod, you'll know these buildings will eventually level up to level 2. They'll generate more resources, have more health. They'll get a visual upgrade. And then at level 3, they'll get another visual upgrade, have a defensive tower, and it generates even more resources. Now, as every faction, you need to have some factions have special buildings you need to build that gives you ways of upgrading these buildings. Other factions have other ways. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but with Gondor we have the marketplace. And the way we do that is through the tools system. So, with every building inside the settlement is a different kind of tool, and every building on a settlement is a different kind of tool. And they're called the workers' tools and the settlers' tools. Workers' tools are the tools that are inside all of your camps, castles, and outposts included. Outposts are not classed as settlements because they are build plots, whereas settlements are individual to the norm, as it were. And I can now show that off. So under here, economy upgrades. We have the workers' tools, the forged workers' tools, the settlers' tools, and the forged settlers' tools. So with these workers' tools, for the cost of 900, most factions is 900. In fact, no, every faction is 900. Some factions require other things to get to level 2, but we'll go over that shortly. But you can see here, upgrades all economy buildings in castles, camps and outposts to rank 2. At rank 2, economy buildings produce 25% more resources and gain 500 additional hit points, sorry. And then that is pretty much the norm for everything. Every building gets that upgrade. So once this has been completed, we'll get a nice little tooltip at the top, and then it will show these buildings turning to level 2. They'll get a nice flash of blue light or red light depending on the faction, and then they will upgrade. Which is, I think, is a very good improvement. Originally, you had to pay for upgrades into every individual building, which would end up costing more than the 900. But that 900 you pay for is immediate and is permanent. You cannot get that upgrade downgraded. You can never have a building not level 2 after you pay for that upgrade. And you can never have a building up to level 3 if you pay for the second upgrade. Some factions require a second requirement to get to the tier 3 economy buildings. Those factions normally have a stronger early game, and so they don't need the extra requirements to... They need the extra requirement to hold them back, because otherwise they have a very strong late game presence. So we've built some units just to support us in taking an outpost, so I can show that off to you. We've got some archers and spearmen. Now for Gondor, every unit has a formation. A lot of factions also have units that can have formations. However, there are also other factions that don't have any formations, such as Mordor and Rohan, for example. All that they can do is upgrade their troops and give them special military upgrades, such as having heroes nearby or using powers with them. Now with this, as you can see, pikemen really good against trolls. If I was against wards, I would also specialise in going pikemen, because pikemen are good at dealing with things like that, which is obvious. That's the rock paper scissors system that Battlefield to most small RTS games have always had in the past. Obviously that has changed more over the course of time, but even in games like Total War, there's always this rock paper scissors scenario where you'll always have one unit that beats another, and that unit can beat another unit, and that unit might beat the first unit, and so on and so on. So we now have this outpost. Originally, back in BFME 1, all you could do was build the generic outpost. But in Edain Mod, we have other buildings we can build. As Gondor, we have the Border Stronghold, which gives us access to other unique units like the Knights of Dol Amroth. Now, every faction, these buildings, firstly, are single entity buildings. They're not like an outpost where it's the citadel and then 3 build plots around it. These buildings, if they are attacked individually, it has 1 health bar, so if that health bar hits 0, it's gone. And you will lose all the money you put into it, and it will revert to an outpost. As that outpost with the banners. And then anyone that goes near it and then stands there for about 5 seconds after the timer ticks off, it will then go to the player who is near it, if they have the resources to build the outpost. And as you can see, they build relatively quickly. Some don't take as long, some are a lot easier. And these buildings normally have like small upgrades you can give to make it more powerful, can add a healing effect. A lot of the good factions have a healing effect on their second outpost. This also has the boiling oil, which is a nice defensive option against a lot of melee troops. Can have a bit more archers to fire, or also give extra damage and armor to nearby troops. So basically acting as a heroic statue. So having all these things put together make it on par with an ordinary outpost. However, the outpost itself has more diversity because you can make it solely an economy base or solely a military base. Although, if I was to choose a military base for Gondor, I would choose the Border Stronghold because it has troops that you cannot get anywhere else. And also another hero you can't get anywhere else. So, I'm just going to upgrade these buildings just so we can talk about some other stuff. And as you can see, the blacksmith has now gone into a new state. It has some nice stone archers around there. It's got more powerful walls protecting it. And yeah, and also the townhouse has got more people surrounding it. It's got more housing. and all nice and good. And if we were to demolish this, all those people would just die. It's quite sad. And yet now you can get the Forge Workers tools, which gives us another 20% economy. So actually, getting tier 3 is less efficient than getting tier 2, and you always have to keep that in mind. I normally don't care. That extra money is all I really care about. So at the end, you'll get an extra 45% economy for all of your buildings and an extra 1500 health for 1800 resources, which isn't bad. That's not bad. It's definitely worth getting. And then here, settlers tools. If I was to build this, any settlement I would build here on out would also be tier 2, but it will cost 100 more. I will demonstrate by going to another settlement because I haven't actually shown it yet. But currently, when I built that ranger tent and I built that farm, they were only 200 resources. If I was to go to that settlement now and build another farm or ranger tent, it would still cost 200. But if I was to wait for this upgrade to finish, then that building will cost 100 more. And the same again if I go to tier 3. However, it will then be fully upgraded and it will come with the man the defences already online, which for I think it's a 30-second period, it then shoots at any enemy nearby, which is not bad. I think that is definitely better than having a permanent tower or having to specialise a building to have a permanent tower, because then you have to focus on that in particular. So going back to here, because I haven't actually gone over everything yet, we also have defensive buildings like the keep, which are better than the castle or camp defences because you can also man them with troops. And in the case of Mordor is the way of getting fire arrows for those towers. Then we have ways of improving our troops' strengths and also having other discounts, or even healing them. Obviously only the good factions have healing in their castles and camps and outposts, but evil factions supplement that by just having more cool stuff to work with in the first place. And then some factions also have unique buildings like the Stoneworker, which doesn't really fall in any other category of like military or economical or defensive buildings. They're just a building that is a bit more flavour to the faction. The Stoneworker's always been one of my favourite buildings back in BFMU 1. And basically it adds to Gondor's it adds to Gondor's flavour, which is them being the defensive faction. And as you can see here, yep, I've waited for the settlers tools to be made, so now this costs 300. But coming back to here, so what makes Gondor so special? I'm not going to go into too much detail, obviously, but the main thing about Gondor is their way of defending is incredibly good. They have some of the best defences, and they have enough build plots to build quite a lot in their base.
This one is finished.
And these just help supplement that. So destroy structures, refund 50% of the cost. Good. Stronger gates, stronger walls, stronger towers. It just makes defending your base so much more efficient than anything else than any other faction really. There's not many factions I can say that have better defences than Gondor. But also this reduces the cost of building. So a lot of Gondor's things is that they just reduce the cost of things, because they have a lot of things. But also because of that, you can only really specialise in one thing, or you kind of fall short. A faction like Rohan is very cavalry focused, and you'll probably always see them play with cavalry in the late game. Or if as I will show in a video in the future, they can actually go for a very powerful, aggressive peasant spam. But enough of that. So we've talked about the buildings. We've talked about how when they get upgraded, they get stronger. They offer more value, and etc. etc. We've talked about outposts, that they offer great value in different ways depending on the faction and the playstyle you're evolving to. The different layers you have to worry about. So the next things are generic, mainly to all of Battlefield Middle-earth 2, but are made different thanks to the Edain Mod's changes. The first being the powers. Now, if you've seen me play the Edain Mod, you'll be very aware of this kind of power tree. But if you've never played the Edain Mod and you've played only like Battlefield Middle-earth 1, Battlefield Middle-earth 2, Rise of the Witch King, Age of the Ring, you'll never have any idea what all of this means. So, in the Edain Mod, powers are structured to be a defensive tree, an aggressive tree, and then the central power. Obviously, there's still tiers, tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. I call the central power just the central power, but sometimes I call it a tier 3 power. So you have 2 tier 1, 2 tier 2, 5 tier 3 powers, and 2 tier 4 powers, in a sense. At least that's how I see it, because the cost for the central power is normally a lot more than the tier 2 powers. Well, it's different in some cases, but we'll not go into too much detail. So so for a faction like Gondor, who is a very defensive faction to begin with, you'll think their defensive powers are really good. And they are. They get rebuild, which has been a thing since BFME 2. They have Lone Tower, another thing from just BFME 2. They're that good, they've kept them for this long. But then, this power here, Assistance in Times of Need, and this power here, the Grey Company, they're only accessible if you have built the tier 2 power on the defensive tree or the aggressive tree. With Formations of Gondor, if I was to buy this first, I could get either the tier 3 power Gandalf the White or Plea to the Eagles, and then when I have either of them, I can then get the other as well. So if I was to get Gandalf the White on this current path, I could then get Plea to the Eagles and then access to an Oath Fulfilled without needing any other of these powers to get access to them, which I think has a lot of really cool potential, because you can go one way in the early game, focus on one thing to like focus on your economy or get really powerful military troops or power up a really good hero, and then you can completely switch up your game mode, go for a different power than what your enemy might have expected, and then just absolutely swarm them with that kind of potential. And if your enemy's unprepared, they could actually lose out on a lot of their early game advantage, for example. Or they could lose a really powerful hero, which they might rage over and then quit the game, which I have seen happen before. But we'll get out of that now. So yeah, every faction has that same power tree where it's defensive, aggressive, and central. And I really like it. I really like how they've changed the whole layout of the powers. I really do enjoy it. Another thing they've done was originally command points were centralized to your buildings. I'm sure everyone who's played BFME 2 will remember having built like 5 resource structures, getting 250 command points, and then losing all of them and losing all the command points. With the Edain mod, they've tried to focus on giving the game more comeback mechanics, basically. So if you're forced back into your base and you're stuck there for like 10 minutes just trying to fight out, but you can never get back out, so you've got to sit in your base all the time, you might be thinking, crap, I'm falling behind. I've got so little. However, in the Edain mod, it's very different. Instead of just being able to be swarmed from behind, for example, by cavalry and having all your high-level resource structures destroyed, you can quickly rebuild them back up again, have them the level you upgrade them to with the workers tools. Your command points will never change if you buy the expanded storerooms. It's a 500 resource cost to have permanent 200 command points. You can do this 5 times. So how to do that? I've clicked it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It's now grayed out. I can no longer click it. So once this has all been completed, I will then have 1500 command points, and that will never change. They can never take that away from me. That kind of thing reassures me in a way when I'm playing, because it means I don't have to worry about protecting my base. I don't have to worry about protecting one structure, because if I lose it, I lose a lot of command points. That was always one of the things I didn't like about BFME 2 and Age of the Ring when I was playing, is because you have to focus so much on defending a few buildings, or you have to expand your domain to actually have a presence in the game. But like in BFME 1, the command points you have are fixed and they cannot be removed, and I do really enjoy that. So with all this, what else is there to possibly talk about? Because I'm not done yet. So firstly, we have the heroes. For all those that remember BFME 2, you'll know all the heroes are in the Citadel, or in your main structure. That has been changed drastically. For those who have played Edain 3.8 going way back when, going back half a decade now, you'll remember that some heroes are able to be bought from the Citadel, but other heroes are locked behind buildings, such as Faramir at the archery range, or Baragon and Boromir at the barracks, or say even Prince Imrahil from the Border Stronghold. And one of them that I'm actually a little bit annoyed about is Strider from the Signal Fire. But I like the Signal Fire now, so I'm not annoyed by it. But yeah, every faction has one or two heroes that are locked behind either an outpost or a settlement building. So, for example, Rohan, you need to get Phaedra from one of the Signal Fire buildings. The what's it called? The guard post. In Mardris and Arnor, you can get Kurdan from the Linden Stronghold, which you can only get from a settlement. The Dale or Lake Town buildings, you can get King Brand or Bard from those buildings. You can get a lot of different heroes that are locked behind different buildings, and obviously they all cost different command points. So look at Pippin, 15 command points. He's a nice cheap scout hero, and that's his purpose. That's his role. He plays the role of a scout hero. I'm actually going to get Pippin just to tell you more about that. But then you can see we get Faramir and Beragond, they're 30 command points. Boromir, he's above them, so he's 45 command points. Then we've got Denethor, he's at the point where he's still below characters like Boromir, so he's only 30 command points. Then we also have Gandalf, who is 60 command points. So he's a whole Gondor infantry unit just thrown onto the battlefield. Then we have Imrahil, he is also 30. Van Fersen Strider, he is also 60, yes. So the only 45 command point hero we have is Boromir. So if we had all the heroes put together, that would be 30, 30, 45, that's 105. Pippin, that's 120, 150, 210, 270 command points are all heroes. 270, 300. 300 command points, all on our heroes. But to be fair, I'm fine with that, because heroes are just good. But obviously, the reason why they've been categorized in these command points is because that's basically the role they play. The command point limit kind of tells you exactly how strong they are in general, but not actually their key strengths. So Pippin, for example, he's only a small little thing, but he can pack a punch when he gets leveled up. And because he is one of the two hobbits, you can pay 400 to him, and after a while he will then get his armor. He'll become stronger and immediately level up to 5. And obviously, because again, as I said, he is the scout hero, he has a way of viewing the map by increasing his vision and also increasing his speed. Merry also can do the exact same thing. Who else? Rumil and Orphin are unique compared to some some scout heroes. Gildor can view an area of the map. Bill Fernie for Isengard can scout enemy heroes or disguise himself in the enemy lines to prepare for a big all-out attack. Gorbag can summon little orcs, and Shagrak can bring out Uruks to move around buildings. But the orc snitches for Gorbag can also spy out enemy stealth units, such as Gollum, for example.
We have the White Wizard.
And let's now get Baragon and Boromir, just so we can talk about how comparatively they're both really good, but there's a big difference between the two. One is particularly good in one thing, and the other is particularly good in another thing. And personally, Boromir might be better at the one thing he does to help overall in combat, but Baragon overall for the faction is probably better for the early game. And when it's circulating into the late game is more valuable still because of his ability, but only if you get him leveled up. So Baragon is a defensive hero that focuses on giving things to buildings. So for example, creating Guards of the White Company, a way of defending a building. And then he can make a well out of a building. He gives buildings extra defenses against enemy infantry and cavalry and siege. He can then make them invulnerable, and then when he hits level 10, he can give all those powers to heroes as well. So his focus is on defense, purely defense for either buildings or when he gets leveled up enough to heroes. Boromir, however, is a lot more
Scared of who you are.
combat-focused hero. He specialises in being in the front lines, hitting things with his AoE knockback. He can stun the enemy army. He can make enemies around him quail in fear. He gets tougher with his armour. He gets even stronger. So he's a very competent melee fighter against large hordes or even strong enemy heroes. Hero killers will have trouble killing a hero like Boromir, who is tanky to a fault. And then he can even summon troops later on in his tech tree. Faramir is a more utility-focused hero, which doesn't have any real strength. He's a jack of all trades. He's an archer, he's a swordsman, he's a man on a horse. He has a lot of different skills. And the same can be said for Imrahil. He focuses on improving your infantry in other ways, unlike with Boromir, whose presence is mainly just to frighten the enemy. And then we have Gandalf, whose main purpose is just dealing damage. He's the strongest hero in Gondor. He's the most expensive hero in Gondor because he deals massive amounts of damage. Some factions might have their big damage dealer lower down on the tree because their faction already is really good at dealing damage, so they don't need it as much. But with a faction that is more focused on defense, it's good to have that kind of strength hero. And then Denethor is in the middle again because he's a hybrid hero in different ways. And Aragorn is the strength hero slaying because he has a lot of ways to pinpoint an enemy hero and bring them down quite quickly. But that's enough of that. So,
Ready yourselves?
going through all of that, thinking through everything, the main way to play through any faction is to know their strengths, not so much protect their weaknesses, but know how to work against the strengths of your opponents. Is I think one thing, and we'll go over that more in detail on every specific faction's beginner's guide, which I hope, if this video gets enough love, I will go through the beginner's guides for every single faction. If not, then I'll probably still do it, just not as in bulk as I want to do. But yeah, that is the beginner's guide to the Edain mod. The main things to learn about would be to, I would say, to anyone who wants to learn how to play this mod, just play the game a lot, and you'll learn new things every time you play. I keep learning new things just from playing on a day-to-day basis. I learn so much just from playing through the game day to day, finding some buildings are actually better than they used to be back a few patches ago, and finding out that going for more diversity in early game units actually brings a massive impact to the late game because it frees up your economy, for example. And also some buildings, though they aren't necessary, they are still very fun to use. So I hope everyone has enjoyed. I hope you will all leave some positive feedback. And I hope we can see some more beginner's guides in the future. But until then, my friends, farewell.